Hi, my name is Patricia Rawlinson, and this is my Giving Thanks banner project. This is a wonderful little rock lawn banner. This is made with drapery lining fabric, and it's cut out at the top to hang over in the slot for the banner, and cut out at the bottom, which just makes it very festive and very fun. Looks very realistically leafy. I've cheated and I've used leaf stencils to paint all the leaves, and that makes them go super fast and easy. I've got a watercolor technique here in the background, and it's just really a fun little project to paint. So I hope you enjoy. All right, we're getting ready to prep our banner. Now I've got Rocklon blackout weight fabric. It's got a smooth side and it's got a rough side that's almost like canvas. I prefer to paint on the rough side. Now when we have our little flip over, we're going to have the smooth side being our flip. So like you're going to have to paint on both in order to have that little flip. But I'm taking my 2-inch foam roller and I'm taking Gray Sky and Winter Blue, and I'm just kind of brush mixing them in. I'm going to roll this on, and it's not going to get in everywhere. It just doesn't the first time, so I'll have to do another coat. And I can see if I like the color with that kind of equal mix when I get it done. And I'll let it dry, and then we'll repeat the coat. Okay, so my first coat is dry, and sometimes what you'll notice is you'll get this really kind of rough, scratchy, raised texture. You can hear it smoother over here and rougher here. So what I just do is I just take a sanding disc and knock it back, and that just works out perfectly. You don't think you can sand on this, but you can. All right, so we're gonna do another coat of the mix. Okay, just get it on there. Be careful, these rollers spit. I got some on my jeans here, and they just kind of spit back at you, so push forward more than you push back and forth, especially when you just put fresh paint on your roller. So I'll give it a second coat, and then I'm going to come right back to you as soon as I get it coated. Okay, while it's wet, I'm going to go into, the only problem is I don't know where my stuff is. I go into my sky and start getting just a little bit of cloudy business going on, and that's going to just be a slip slap. Slip slap is where you make some series of X's, and that is going to move your paint around. And because my undercoat is wet, oops, hi goober, because the undercoat is wet, that it's going to blend the colors together, and it's going to be very soft and very pleasing. Because it's wet, it's going to be messy, so do be careful about your clothes or you're working with a fairly long project. And I'll do more when it's dry to brighten this up. And then I think let's go ahead and go in with a little bit of a darker blue, just to have some defining kind of color up there. A mottled sky, cloudy day kind of thing. And then we'll go ahead around our edges. And give that a little bit. Trying to hold it down. Without getting stuff all over myself. And leaving it just a little bit choppy, I think, is a pleasing thing. So don't be afraid to leave some of that kind of just brusherly, painterly look. Fade it in where you don't like it. You know, this is your painting. You can decide what you want. Okay, let's see if I've got that even remotely near where that pattern goes. Yeah, I think that's remotely near. And now we'll just bring it down the edges just a little bit more. make sure that you do get a little bit of intensity around the edge. You can put some more in later, but what I find is if you don't, that you will end up being kind of sad about that. You want to be able to like frame in the art, and if the art isn't framed in, then you really find that your art will spill kind of out of its borders. And you see this really well when you go backwards and look at your art that you did previously. So we don't want to have hindsight, we want to have foresight. And then squint your eyes and look at things and see, do you like what's going on here? Got a little bit of a dice thing going on. Don't make patterns. A kind of busy little sky with some little things going on here. And then blend at the edges. All right, just to give you indications that even people who know what they're doing don't do it right. I don't like how this sky is for my church. I want my church sky and my fall sky to be a little bit clearer and crisper looking. So I'm going to go back with a little bit, like 1 of the gray sky to 2 of the winter blue. And I'll mix that up. Don't want it quite so gray. And I'm just going to go right back over and just delete. So paint is a great eraser. Never be afraid to just paint over things. All right, I've got a lot of base coats blocked in, and I'm gonna go ahead and do these trees. I've soaked my 1-inch foliage brush in water, and I'll apply some more water because it's used it up, and I'll scumble it over here on my palette. I'm just stomping it out. And then I'm gonna go over here and just let the brush kind of form some irregular kind of little leaves. I'm not pushing, I am, and then I'm going to do it in 3 little tiers. I'm going to go right over my building. I don't want there to be any kind of seams. And we're going to let that kind of watercolory irregularity just kind of happen. I'm going to pick up a little bit of black-green with the heel. Smush it all out, maybe just a little black green plus plantation pine, not too dark. And now what I'm going to do is create the ground. So a little bit of shading, and then the shading behind the clumps of trees. Blot just a little bit more. That's just going to define your tree lines. A little bit I'm lifting off my other, make sure you let it dry. This is a do as I say, do not as I do exercise. Okay, so now we have some little clumps of trees within that. Okay, I'm going to take out my acrylic bridge so that I can work over my trees without waiting for my trees to dry. I'm going to use a dry rubbing with a dome brush, and that is how I'm going to get some clouds going on. Okay, and I think I definitely want some kind of, this is where my fold's going to go, some kind of center of attention here in the middle, so I'm just going to scumble in little circles. I should be able to achieve some pretty nice fluffy little clouds. This is called dry rubbing. I'm going to go right through our building. I'm going to go back and squint quite a bit. I like that much better than the muddy mess I was making before. Okay, I'm gonna get little dreamy clouds back over here. Distance. And then the neat thing about clouds is I can switch to a smaller brush. These dome brushes are amazing, by the way. I haven't found anything else quite like them. So I can switch to a smaller brush, and then I can build a little bit of layers. See how this bridge is keeping my hands right off the top of that? But I can still see through it. Love that. You can make a bridge out of almost anything, but the clear is really cool. Okay, so we'll give these clouds just a little bit. And I wonder if we want to go in and even just give them a little bit of, hey, I'm a fluffy, bright white cloud. You don't want that to have a sudden, like everybody be the same, kind of, but I think that's a lovely touch. Okay, I've got some Indian turquoise and a big dome brush. I'm just going to sprinkle just a little variation in the sky. And then see how it's got little dusty stuff. As soon as that dries, I'll just brush that off. Okay, we're going to add some clapboard to the church building. We're going to take our Patty's Favorite Dry Brush brush, which is, mine is a ratty looking thing, but the rattier the better. We're going to load generous paint in this brush by just putting it in and dragging out flat paint. You don't want to drag out ridges like that because then you'll end up with big ridges in your painting. And I'll kind of rock back and forth as long as I've got nice and flat paint. Then I'm going to flick on a paper towel so that it leaves the bulk of the tip of the paint away. And I want these lines to be correct lines. So I'm going to follow my roof line here. And we're just going to make scumbly lines. And give them a little bit of separation. Okay, then we'll wash our brush. Okay, we're going to repeat the same thing with the warm white, and we're going to I'm going to blot some of that off. Give it the impression of shingles, so I want to keep it kind of even. Otherwise we might have to go tell those builders they did a bad job. Oops, and try to keep them fairly straight. Okay, and then don't forget your steeple. Okay, we're going to highlight our church with some warm white. Is that warm white or whitewash? Whitewash. And so we're going to get it so that I can get a good stroke. Got a big old giant angle shader. This is the best thing to do when you need to float in a big area. Definitely use a big brush. And I'm going to use a mop, which is also a really good trick for floating in big areas. Okay, get enough water for things to flow along. And you'll notice that I go back and forth over things to get it like a smoother line. And I'm not going to worry right now about running into things because, whoops, except for running into the red paint on my palette, which I will wipe off, and now I will clean my brush. Okay, so cleaned, reloaded, and back at it. Okay, so I think I'll wait and see what our shading does and see if I need to have a little bit more. Okay, I've flipped my project over and now I'm going to go on the other side. Change angles. You want to make sure that your white is dry before you go pulling up through it. And I'm blotting off on a paper towel to clean my mop. Okay, and like I said, we're just going to run on through things. If I don't want to run through things, I can just wipe it off, or I can run through it and then wipe it off. So, for example, my little leaves. And as soon as that dries, then we'll go ahead and go underneath the eaves. And I could even go back if I want to. I'm going to have to wait for things to dry, it looks like. I could go back and strengthen things as I wanted to as well. Okay, and then go underneath the eaves over here. And because this is sunk into the ground behind the fruit and stuff, I think I'm going to go ahead and give it a little bit of shadow, like it's casting shadow down on things. Okay, we're going to do our windows with a crescent brush and marigold, and we're going to dry rub all over them. I'm going to give that lovely glow from within. You're wiping off the brush on a paper towel and then just scumbling. This brush is really, really tough, so you can just kind of abuse it. If you get stuck and you get a lot of paint in there and it dries, then you can just use some of the Winsor Newton brush cleaner and restorer to get it back to sorts. Okay, I like to get those nice and bright. It's like there's a soul living in there, and I think I'll go back and just do a little bit of stippling on top in the middle, the marigold. I'm just blotting that. I'm not rubbing it all off. I want a little bit of chunkiness. Okay, now we're going to repeat with a little bit of that sunny day. Just kind of in the middle, just to give that really lit up look. And I think maybe a couple little crunchies of, that's a little too bright, I think. Okay. Okay, now we're going to take some of the media acrylic. These are super pigmented, no filler, very, very transparent colors that are amazing as glazes and floats. And I'm going to use quinacridone gold, which is a lovely kind of umbery looking color, and it'll allow the other colors to show through and give everything just a really good deep rich glow. Okay, and so we'll do it all on the same sides. And repeat on the other windows. Okay, in the doorway, we'll come down here on the one side. There we go. Okay, we're going to get that roof detailed. We're going to use some graphite to do some shading. Got some black in my brush. What am I doing here? Making a mess. Okay, just add some little details. A lot of times when you have an area like this roof that doesn't really, like it's there and it needs to be something, but you can just kind of give it a minimal amount of attention. Okay, we're going to dry rub the roof just to give it just a little bit of interest. That gives it just a little bit of an impression, and the colors are blue, violet, and Indian turquoise. And we'll give a little bit of a sparkle to the other edges of things. It's amazing when you just give a little dust of color, it just changes all the things. So I'm increasing the intensity at the far edge and then letting it fade into and we could, I think it's probably as intense as I want to go. I think I need a little bit more brightness here. Okay, we're going to take our round brush and use bleach sand to highlight these door jambs. Oops, and we're going to dry brush, so I want that just to flow along and just give it a little bit of an interest. Try to keep your line straight. Make sure that you're pulling at a good angle for yourself, or it will be really hard to keep your line straight. Crooked lines get all kinds of attention, so super important that you just, whatever you do, be steady. And this is with bleach sand. And we'll do the same on all of the rafters and stuff. I'm going to shade the doors with Napa Red just on the one sides to give that just a little bit more depth. And then we'll attack all these little elements right here. Just give them just a little bit of shade detail, just something to add depth. Shade our steps. This is soft black, just to give just a little something else going on there. Shade underneath our eaves. we might deepen our shading. And we didn't, it looks like we didn't get much shading over here. And we could use a highlight over on this side of our church. By highlighting white, we're making the church read white instead of making it read like a gray clapboard. It's more like weathered. So if you wanted it to read grayer, then you might do like gray sky highlights. You can walk that in. Okay, so if you see weird things in your video, like the colors not aligning and stuff like that, it's because I'm always designing these things in real time. And I've decided, I've really gotten to a stopping place here. I've decided that I don't really care for how these colors are turning out for this piece. I don't mind the painting, I don't mind what I've done, but I don't like it for these two things together. So I've got other projects where I've taken and done things just a little bit like cooler, there's a little bit more green in it, and I think that this is just way too saturated in color and hue. So I'm going to go ahead and black it out, rethink it, and we're going to go forward. Okay, the first thing we're going to want to do is establish our background. So I've got some graphite plus plantation pine, and that's going to be like, that's going to meld with our shaded area right there. So I just want to erase. Remember we talked about paints being a great eraser. I'll just erase with that, and then the lower area is going to be burnt umber plus plus the graphite. And I'm just going to kind of go over this pumpkin just a little bit, and then his colors are going to change anyway, so he'll just get based out. But I don't need to go all the way up here with him. I'll just do up near the church with the graphite mix. Okay, I'm going to use my jumbo daubers and milk chocolate, and I'm just going to base coat. Then I'm going to make sure that my stencil is clean, and in order to get the reverse image, I'm just going to reverse it down over here. So I'll have to either dry this or wipe it off, and then I can flip it over and use the reverse side. Okay, these background ones are going to be, the orange side is going to be done with burnt umber, burnt orange, and then into canyon orange, and then the yellow side is going to be with honey brown and into marigold. So you just take your brush. This is like such an easy way to paint a leaf, and you'll give just a little bit of something here and there, and get two brushes going so that you can easily meld them, and then move into the lighter color, and then brighten it up. Okay, and the lighter ones, we've got our honey brown over here. Kind of make them overlap just a little bit, make it interesting. Strengthen it where you need to. Leave some of that background showing. Good idea is to go ahead and do your bases, because then your base color can be drying, and then when you get to done with all the bases, you go back to the next brush and you load the next color in, and that's not making any sense. So if you do the darkest color first and then do the next darkest color first, then by the time you get back around, you can do your highlight color, and that will be dry, and repeat the sequence. All right, we're going to go into our antique gold. I'm going to base the top leaves with antique gold. These are going to just be a little bit brighter, a little bit more obvious. Okay, so we're going to add a little bit of green to our little birch looking leaves here. And then a little yellow on the other tip. And we need to get a little bit of green going in some of these others as well. Switch and have a couple of brushes. I'm going to do antique gold for the yellow. I might be doing antique gold for the yellow. That may not show enough. If you lose some little bristles and stuff like that, we're being real rough with these brushes. Don't worry about it. They brush off. And I actually have only ever thrown away, I think, one of these brushes, and that's because the whole ferrule gave away. But it's really uncommon, and I think I own 100. And I use them pretty bad, you can see here. I'm kind of mean to my brushes. Here in Southeast Ohio, they call it being hateful. But that's how you get them to behave. So I'm going to go into then a little bit of marigold. And let's see what that looks like. There we go. So just a little touch of green I think is good. We'll have some green on these top ones. Okay, and then this guy I already put a leaf over the top of him, but I can just move around that. And I'll do the same thing here. Okay, so we're going to then do lighter green. Try to be strategic when you're doing these. Like, let's not put orange on the side next to the orange pumpkin. Put the yellow there so that you have that contrast. So try to think about it when you're doing it. And you can, feel free to move these colors around too. They don't have to be this way. Okay. We can also deepen a few of these with a little bit of russet in the background just to give them some depth and a little bit of warmth. So we can just add just little hints and tinges of a deeper color. These don't take any time at all when you're going boom, 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 boom all the way through it. Okay, so we could put a little bit of russet on. Oops. Maybe we want a little bit of honey instead of russet. Now this is dirty brush, so it could be that this is just still going to be a little bit dark. So we've deepened that, and we're probably going to want some of our orange colors. Okay, and you always start with your darker color first. Okay, we'll move into our lighter color. Reinforce with some marigold. Marigold can kind of be the blush that goes over the edges of all the colors. So marigold can be used over the green, it can be used over the oranges. Let's take a little sneak peek. See, do we like it? I think it's okay. I think I'll leave it and then I'll come back to it if I need to do a little bit more. This leaf down here underneath it is a little bit dark for what's going on around it. Like, I've got my oranges right there and it looks just a little bit too contrasty. So let's go and lighten him up just a little bit. Give him just a little bit more of a, and diffuse that edge. See how we brightened him and then that made it like belong to the family. And that erased, almost erased the contrast that we were having. It can be darker down in here. And I don't know that we have that going on here. Maybe a little bit here. We'll wait and see. All right, to give a little bit of depth, we're going to take our short, bright brush and we're going to float. And we're going to put just some dimension down here on the background that will show us that some of these things are under some of these other things. Not everywhere, just somewheres. Okay, and that should give us just a little bit of like different kinds of depth. Okay, and then on the leaves, we're going to use russet, and we can deepen with the soft black. And you're not going to do every stinking where, just kind of where you think you need a little bit of pop in. Let's try not to be too stripy there. So this leaf isn't showing very well against that leaf, and then we can just go ahead and glaze that color to make it not be so stripy. Okay, just where we need it. And round your corners out. Okay, so the way I'm going to do the top is I've painted this back side with the same sky color. I'm not putting any clouds in. I don't think I'm going to need them because I think I'm going to trim up and around. I might need just a little bit, I'll see. And then I've laid my pattern over and kind of, whoops, laid it over backwards. Well, and I did lay it over backwards. Anyway, I laid my pattern over, but pretend like this is the right way, and then I'll reverse it. And when I get it there, I see that I have one of these kinds of leaves. So I'm just going to put that leaf where I see that leaf, and I'll do my background ones first, just like I did these down here. And I'll just do them within, you know, coming out of this border right here. We definitely want these leaves coming out of the fold. And so I'll just match them up, and then I'll do the top ones on top. And Bob's your uncle, and you've got some finished leaves with stencils. Okay, I'm leaving some holes for my sky to show through, but I'm gonna need to have something flop here. And so I just want a little rim of a leaf. And I mixed it with my sky color. I mixed the antique gold plus my sky color, just hopefully to give it just a little bit of a hey, I'm a leaf coming down, kind of a layer. Oops. Yeah, I think I can. Just softly, 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 softly. I don't want this to get real heavy up there. Okay, so I think that gives me enough. So see how they just barely form a thing. Okay, and then I've got I erased a leaf that I put there, so I'll just go back over that with the sky color. And I think that might be plenty. Okay, we're going to treat these leaves up in the tree very simple. We just want a little bit of orange up there, so I'm going to go into my darker orange, which is going to be my burnt orange. And we're going to give just a little bit of a kiss of bringing that color down from the sky. A little bit of light. And then we'll go into a little bit of yellow. It's just marigold. Okay, and that just gives it just a real soft little something something. And I think we'll just keep this one back here really soft and make him just have a little bit of yellow coming out. Maybe a little bit of orange. Okay. Just a little something. And these little guys right here, let's see if I can line this up. Maybe we could just dust a little bit of orange or yellow on them, just to give them that little bit of variation so it doesn't read just like a ghost leaf. Okay, now I want to see kind of how things are falling together, so I'm going to go ahead and cut out my leaves using just real sharp scissors, and I take short cuts at a time. I do not try to do like the whole thing. I cut, you know, this circle and then cut it away, and then I cut this circle and cut it away. Okay, we're going to use a giant T-square. I've got my leaves cut out. Doesn't that look really cool? And we're going to use a T-square. I've got this creased up here nicely. And notice that I didn't cut out all the way up to the banner so that I have an area to flop through. And I may end up, depending on how this rests on the banner, I may end up coming just a little bit more. So just FYI, learn from my stuff here. So I'm going to take my T-square, I'm going to lay it up here across the top, get it nice and straight, and make sure that I have a really good straight line to cut from. Okay, and the same thing over here. I definitely want it T. I want it right angles. Don't want it wonky. And I want it in my trees. Okay. And that lets me know where I'm going to cut up here. I think I'll go ahead and cut over to here and probably cut this stem off and then cut out this leaf shape. Okay, we're going to take a little bit of our colors and we're going to get them up into those trees. I've soaked my brush in water, and then what I want to do is I want to just tap and add a little bit of color up there. Maybe then into some orange. Maybe in the heel, get a little bit of the dark down below. Okay, then we'll rinse. And we'll get some a little bit. Different colors. Don't want it perfectly even. Don't want it on a roof. Okay, we'll have some shrubs over here. I am using the palette of colors here. Make sure that you're really watery colors. And break that line. Don't feel like you have to stay all within an area. Go back and pick up a few more of the brighter colors. Okay, we'll flip this down and see how we're doing. It's nice and soft. Okay, now I'm going to dry my brush out, and then we need a couple of what I call crunchies. Things that'll just stay kind of. Okay, I'll let that dry. Okay, with plantation pine and graphite, and maybe we'll sneak in a little bit of russet too. I just want a kind of a brownish green with a lot of water. I'm going to use my Raphael, and I'm just going to draw up some branches just to give the impression that these are trees. Not there. We want them in the back ones. Yeah, I think that gives us that little impression that these are tree branches, and we could probably have some ghosty ones coming out, sticking out above. And that gives us just that little bit more too close to my scene. Okay, and then with a little bit of thinned russet, I'm going to go into our leaves and just create a lovely little bit of vein. This doesn't have to be strong, it doesn't have to be everywhere, it just needs to be there for a little bit of attention, a little bit of detail. Okay, we're going to attempt a little bit of a swag coming down over the top of the church. So that's just where our greenery kind of comes. And then we'll get a little pro round brush and we'll shoot some little leaves and stuff on this. And then we'll go into our colors and give it some little color leaves. And bring it down in front of that window. Some gold. Oops. I think we'll make these like little sunflowers. And we'll go into our graphite and give them little dotted centers. Yeah, just a little bit of something going on. It's a little bit lonely. And then maybe we'll have a little fall wreath on our door. Wreaths. We'll have maybe some green ribbon. And a little bit of yellow. You can smell that apple cider going. Maybe we need a darker ribbon. Okay, we'll take our hillside over here. We'll take some Hauser medium green. And just add a little bit of texture. Okay, and then we'll add Hauser light green. Just on that little rise right there. And that adds just a little bit of texture. Okay, we're going to take our Indian turquoise. I've got green in my brush, so let me neutralize that. And we're going to just give us a little bit texture going on our roof. Kind of like that. And then I think we could go with a little bit, maybe a little bit of the Indian turquoise. No, not like that. Maybe a little bit on our grass. Just dry brush that. that's too much. So spit and wipe. Okay. It's a very technical painting skill right there. Spit and wipe. Okay, now I'll bring some of our Indian turquoise into our sky. Just to brighten it up just a little bit. And then we will be bringing some of this Indian turquoise into our leaves and stuff, but I will have to wait for that. Add a little bit of antique gold with magic mesh or the marigold. So we'll do the darker areas on with antique gold. Just give them just that little bit of sparkle going on. And then we'll go into marigold for the others. That just adds that little bit of charm. All right, and I want to add a little bit of kind of glow coming out of our doorway. Makes me feel like it's spilling down onto the path and stuff. Okay, I've got my letters stenciled with a mix of blue, violet, and khaki tan, and then I'm going to dry rub or rub the lower area with graphite plus blue violet. And that'll kind of give it that little fade kind of thing going on from the bottom up. When you're doing this kind of rubbing base on the thing, make sure that your dome brush isn't too wet. Okay, and then we need to do something. I am quickly running out of brushes. We're going to go into desert turquoise and kind of scumble that from the top down. And I'm feeling a strong need to check and see if I'm going to like this or not. Okay, so I think I can do that. So we're going to have our Indian turquoise. Oops, I just did the wrong brush with Indian turquoise. Or desert turquoise, sorry. We'll get that turquoising up right there. Okay, and then when I get that done, then I want to take our magic mesh and I want to go into Indian turquoise, and then I want to just go across, and let's take a little peek. Yeah, I think we can like that. So just go across the tops with that. Okay, and on the giving, I'm having a hard time knowing what I want to do. I'm going to try the turquoise. Got this in the desert turquoise. Okay, and then we'll go into Indian turquoise and we'll do the tops. All the letters, so we'll go from about halfway up. Oops, and I've slid someplace. When you start peeking under stencils, things start shifting. Then we'll go into some white right at the very tops. Okay, and then next we'll get some drop shadowing going. For that, you're going to want a nice, lovely number, probably 8, not 8, I've got a 6 round. We're going to use graphite with a lot of water. And I want it real sheer, so lots and lots of water. Then you blot it off. And then you're just going to go right next to the letters. And maybe I've got it too sheer. So just thicken it up a little bit. Right next to all the letters and underneath. Okay, and that just gives them that little bit of dimension. We're going to use our compass to make a line, make a band all the way around. Keep your compass at the same angle as you're drawing it around. And then I'll give you nice even lines. This is a great, great way to make banding lines on things like floor cloths instead of getting out a ruler. This just makes everything the same, follows the contours, and it's super fast and easy. Okay, I'm going to use some milk chocolate and my number 10 flat short bright. Sorry, I'm getting it. I'm painting and talking at the same time, which ought to be an outlawed thing. This is a difficult surface to band because it is all kinds of wonky. I'm just going to kind of wing it and not worry about it too much. I'm going to use my Raphael and thinned russet plus deep burgundy, and I'm going to band all the little wonky bits here. There. And then what I'm going to do, I don't want to run my hand through that, so I'm just going to do the short bits. So I'll just do that line, and then I'll do that line, and I won't worry about it being like all one continuous line. And we'll take a little bit of our Santa red and just kind of punctuate the edges of things. And just over. This is how we get a color not to be isolated, is we use it just a little bit here and there. And that helps carry things around. Okay, I'm going to use a little bit of the blue violet plus the Indian turquoise. And we're going to shade just right over here next to the edge. And be prepared to walk that out just a little bit, and it'd be helpful if I had you on that camera. Okay. Just walk it on out. Get a mop. Even things out just a little bit. You probably could come straight over the top there with a little bit of it too. Just kind of in those curved areas. Okay, we're going to spatter a little bit of white, kind of in that cloud area. I think we can spatter with a little bit of graphite plus the blue. Always spatter off over on your palette. Just helps break things up. Adds interest. Okay, we're going to spatter with russet down in our leaf areas. And we want to be careful that we don't spatter. So I'm spattering towards the area I don't want the spatters to hit, because they won't spatter inward. Okay, and then we'll spatter a little teeny bit in that sky with cleaner water than that. Okay, and then I'm going to anchor spatter with our marigold on our leaves. So I'm going to anchor, and I'm going to spatter right where I want things to land. Not quite on the door. I love this technique because it just really stays exactly where you put it.